Today I'm going to be discussing the OSCAL Powermax 6000 with you. This is on paper a pretty impressive unit because it comes in at 6,000 watts of continuous output at 240 volts in this form factor. So that's pretty impressive. There isn't many power stations on the market that can do that comes in at this size. Now, I know there was an older version of OSCAL. I had done a little research to see what I could find about this brand because I know nothing about them. And that's what worries me sometimes when we get these budget brands coming in, sending me things. You know, I want to make sure that I'm recommending high quality products to you. And if they don't perform, I need to let you know that. And if they do perform, did we just find a budget friendly option that you can depend on? So this is the OSCAL. They did have an older version of this. It was not 240 volts in the US. It was 120 volts in the US with a 30 amp TT30 plug on the front. This has the 240 volt outlet on the front as well. The unit looks almost identical to that older unit. So let's find out if this thing has any quality to it or if you should pass. What I think would be cool is when we turn these power stations in this orientation, if the screen can orientate also. No power station that I know of is capable of doing that right now, but that is a recommendation for anybody that's out there listening. And something that I think is pretty cool with this system is once you reach a certain point, like right there, it's locking in so you can set it down without this thing rolling back. So I thought that was pretty well thought out because some of these, when you go to set it down, it doesn't grab and it wants to continue to roll. But right there, you can hear it grabbing. And on the back, we have our solar input, your charge speed. So you can manually set this with a flick of a switch. So we can do fast charging or slow charging. We have a circuit protector and our AC input. I do not like these little flap doors that a lot of these companies use. They're just hard to close. You can see that with one hand, this one is having a problem. And then when it does close, it's a little bit loose. See if I can get you here a little bit closer to the information so you can check that out if that information is something that you're looking for. I do think that this handle is a little bit sturdier than what other manufacturers have been offering. And it clicks in the spot. So if you want to bring it up right there to have a handle, that's pretty nice to have that. Look how the handle just comes up. Now you have an extra handle to grab it. Or we can go on up, you just press the button in and lift and it locks in place in different spots. And it's pretty secure when you lock it in. So let's lift it all the way up. Take a look at that. Look how thick the handle is. This is not a little bar that comes up. So not all of them are like that, but I have seen them where the handles are pretty flimsy. This one seems to be pretty solid. And these top handles have these nice grooves so you can get your hands in there and grab it. This doesn't feel flimsy, doesn't feel like it'll ever break on you. So it's nice to have a nice, sturdy, strong handle to grab this heavy unit with. The wheels are a little bit better quality as far as the surface contact, but it does have a little wiggle right there in the bearing that allows us to turn. But this is ultra quiet on concrete or hard surfaces. Not sure how this would be in sand or anything of that sort, or soft soil. So just keep that in mind. These are decent wheels as far as moving it around in hard surfaces though. If we look at the casing, this plastic feels kind of cheap. So you can kind of press in on it. This up here, not so much. This does feel good. The handles feel nice and solid. This right here, I think is like an ABS plastic. This down here is pretty thin stuff. The doors that cover these areas here, I do not like them. I hate this style of door that's on any power station. I just feel like it's cheap. Trying to press this back in is not the best. Goes in perfect sometimes, other times not so perfect. So I do feel like the plastics, they're in general, are kind of cheap. On the surrounding, on the top and the bottom, they look and feel pretty good though. Visually, it's easy to tell what's on or off with these nice bright lights. So if we turn these off, now we know that none of those are on, and we just press and turn them on. You can actually turn the Bluetooth on and off with a switch right here, which is very nice. And to turn the unit on and off, you just press and hold. And it turns it off. Same thing to turn it on. And then we can start turning things on immediately if we would like. And it does have a light, which I don't really care about. I'll show you why I don't care for the lights being on the front. If they were in the back, it's a different story. Look how hard it makes it to see that. If we turn off the lights, I think I want to do a demonstration. So let's turn it on like that right there. And let's see if we can see the front. And for me, I just think this is a blinding light coming directly at you from the front. So I don't care for them on the front. I wouldn't mind them maybe if they're in the back or on the sides or even on the top or on the bottom to give a halo effect around the power station. But on front, I do not like them because I can't really see any of this plugs or anything over here because the light is blinding me. Now, if I cover that, you can see, I can see a good amount of the plugs there, but being that it's turned on right in the front, I just think it blinds the user. And the screen is very visible indoors, but because this is so reflective, I'm not sure how well this will hold up outdoors. Surprisingly enough, it's very visible outdoors. The overall dimensions are going to be from the bottom of the wheel to the top of the handle because that's the space that it would take up. And that is roughly 17.5 inches. And then we're going to go for the backside wheel, roughly 23 inches. And deep, we're looking at 12 inches. This is not a light unit. It will take a little muscle to move it around. But the most important thing is, does this thing perform? Let's talk about some of the specifications, give you a rundown of the portable power station, and then put it through some tests. It's nice that it is equipped with the 12 volt 30 amp output of the Anderson plug. That gives us more flexibility when hooking this into a van or an RV or something like that. It does come with the barrel ports and the standard car outlet for the DC outlets. And it's a simple turn on and off there. Over here on the right, we do have 4 USB-A ports and 2 USB-C ports that have a max output of 100 watts. And again, you just press to turn those on. Over on the left side, we have 1, 2, 3 outlets that are turned upside down, which I do not like. I will always point that out. These need to have rotation basically downward. And I'll show you why this one's important, because if you have something like a meter that you're wanting to put in here, it's going to cover up your on switch. And you just press that to turn it on. In the manual, it states that this is 120 volts only for the US model, but it states right here it's 240 volts. Let's plug this one here and this one here. Let's see if we can get a reading down there. And I am seeing 231 volts coming out of this. Let's go this side to this side. Should be, yep, nothing. Yep, 115 on that side if you can see it. And if I switch this over to here, should be 115 on that side. So 115 between these 240 between those. So this is indeed a 240 volt split phase system like that right there. So there isn't many of these on the market. And this is very concerning to me because if you search Amazon, you're going to get a portable power station that looks almost identical to this. But there's a problem. It's not the unit that's being showed on Amazon. So if you purchase that from Amazon, then you wouldn't be getting the unit that I have here on my table. Now, I did find this one on their website that come in significantly higher at $3,500 or $3,400. And I'll see if I can find that again and put it up here so you can see that. But at that price point, this is no longer a budget option because now you can buy a Blue Yeti Apex 300, a battery, or even two Apex 300s and have a significantly lot more power than this one. You can buy an EcoFlow, you could buy an Anker Solex F3000, two of those, and be well below what this unit is. So I don't know what the price point of this is because it's very confusing. On Amazon, they're showing a different product, and on their website, it's overpriced. So that's the first red flag. However, I am going to give this a fair shake. So let's get down to the specifications and then get into some testing. Those fans do not stay on, and when they're not on, we're looking at around 30 decibels. So this is an extremely quiet portable power station, especially for something of this size. At full charge, we're getting an internal temperature reading in the 135 to 139 Fahrenheit range. This is the internal components as we look through the fins into the inside of the unit. This is about as accurate as I can get trying to get internal temperatures on this. With this set on fast charge, we're getting around 1700 watts coming in. Let's turn it down to slow charge and see what the difference is. And it looks like that is regulated right at 1200 watts for slow charging. In this test, we want to make sure that we can use the power station while we're charging the power station. And to do that, let's turn on the AC, turn this heat gun on. And yes, you can charge and use the power station at the same time. I get that question a lot, so I just want to start throwing that into my reviews. But yes, you certainly can. The positioning of this plug is kind of strange because if I want to plug something like a meter into this, I have got to turn it upside down. And guess what happens? Our power button is right here. So I do not like that. This should be turned this way. Although it might be in the way of the light, I think the power button is more important than light when it comes to this scenario. And it continues to charge at close to 1700 watts, all the way up to 99%, probably into 100% at this point. I do not think that the recharging time over there on the left is correct because it's stating that it's got 7 minutes remaining. And it's been saying that since around the 95, 96% state of charge percentage on the screen. Just know that when you hit 99%, you're going to be at this percentage for a very long time. We were charging at close to 1700 watts earlier, and this said 7 minutes left on it. I went 20 minutes, and we're still at 99%. Saying that we have 5 minutes left, I'm guessing that that is incorrect. This is slowly coming down, exactly what we'd like to see when we get closer to 100%. But this time over here, do not rely on that to be accurate. Now for our capacity test, we have our meter plugged in, turned over to kilowatt hours. We're at 100%. We're going to turn on our heat gun and let it run and see how much capacity that we actually use out of the system. This is going to be very interesting because we've barely had it on and it's already at 98%. We've only used 0.060 kilowatt hours This took forever to go from 99% to 100%, but from 100% to 98%, it's happened extremely fast. So we'll just pay attention to the end number, but it's going to be interesting. We were able to squeeze out 3.265 kilowatt hours of capacity over a 2 hour and 19-minute test. So now the next test that we're going to do is how much does it consume to charge up these batteries. So we're currently at 0. I'm going to do a reset. I'll plug in the AC charger and get this thing charging up. So we're at 1,000, we're at 1,700 watts, basically right off the rip. I do not like full charge at 0%. You can see that we're using 1721 over here. Let's change the function. This is our total consumption, and it takes 4.288 kilowatt hours to fully charge this 3,600 watt hour portable power station, and exactly 2.5 hours. In this test, I'm going to turn on the power station. Then we're going to turn on the AC outlets. That's all three of these and the 240 volt. And we're also going to leave on the Bluetooth. And the reason that I set it up like this is because if we're using this as a backup and we're monitoring this from a remote location, we need the Wi-Fi to be on. We need the AC to be on. You could do this with DC outlets turned on as well, depending on your scenario. But this is how I conduct this test. I turn on the power station, the AC outlets, and Wi-Fi or Bluetooth if it's available. 24 hours later, we're setting at 66%, which is 34% off the battery, considering this is a 3,600 watt hour battery in this. That equates to roughly 1,224 watts over 24 hours. So roughly divide that in by 24, you're getting right around 50 watts per hour or 51 watts per hour for your idle consumption. And to give you a comparison, the Blue Eddy Apex 300 and the Anker F3000 both used around 20 to 25 watts per hour in idle consumption. But this is a much larger inverter than those systems are. But I just kind of want to give a comparison for that. That's with the AC turned on, the power station, of course, turned on, Bluetooth, and the screen all turned on at the same time. So that gives us a good indication of where this stands in idle consumption. With larger systems that are only inverter only, I've seen 110 watts per hour, but that number has drastically come down over the years. And this might be in line with a 6,000 watt inverter that's currently on the market right now that I would recommend. But at 50 watts per hour, that's not bad for a inverter of this size. And this is the part of the video that will either make or break the reliability of the Powermax 6000. Can it actually perform the way that it says it can? It should be able to output 6,000 watts for a continuous cycle from 100% to 0%. And we're about to find out if it can do that. Here's a quick rundown of what's happening in the load center and the circuits that we're going to be powering. Currently, we're set to utility supply. You can see that it's on the on position, and the generator supply is to the off position. When I flip this, we're going to be turning it on to the generator, which is going to be our power station. We have 8 120 volt circuits and 2 240 volt circuits. This is a hot water heater. This is a 24,000 mini split that is in the main area. This is another mini split that's on 120 volts. This is a 12,000 BTU. These are all plugs, and these are lights and one plug there. So that's the basic rundown. We can see that we don't have this turned on yet. I'm going to start this stress test by flipping this over. And you'll see that Now we're at 500 and some watts. This is going to turn on the hot water heater at 240 volts at 30 amps. And this is where the test begins. You see that we're at 4,500 watts, 4,600 watts, basically. I want to get this as close to 6,000 watts as possible from that 100% down to 0 and see if it can handle it. And that was a failure. It did not even reach 6,000 watts. I got it, I think, it up to 5,200, 5,300 watts. It started beeping, and now we're in the dark. The power station's on, but it doesn't automatically turn back on if something happens. You have to come down here, kind of search around, find the on button, and then things will turn back on. So we'll try this again. It's at 5,200 watts, 5,300 watts, and it cannot output 6,000 watts. And this is typically where I just cut off all testing, because I have found some things that make me uncomfortable with the OSCAL Powermax 6000. I'll start with, it can't perform like it says it can. I went back and looked at my film, and I think it was 5312 was the max output before this thing actually kicked off. It was right around very close to 5,300. So we failed to even meet, say, 5,950 or close to that 6,000 watts of continuous output. So this is marketed incorrectly. It cannot perform like it says it can perform, and it didn't even do 5,300 watts for over 5 seconds. So that's a miserable fail when we start talking about an inverter. Next is how this thing is marketed as far as where you can buy it. We have Amazon stating that it's $2,000, looks identical to this, but where the plug is not the same, and that's very confusing. When I jump over on their website, I find this at $3,500, which puts it in a class that I'm not comfortable with even saying that it's budget. It's overpriced at that point. I mean, considering the competition that this thing has to stand up against. Next, we have an app that is not OSCAL's own app. They're using a third-party app, which is fine, but the third-party app for like lights and just different electronics that are usually the cheaper electronics that use this app. So they're selling this app, and I guess you can connect your electronic to it and then manage it. But I gave that a fair shake as well. I looked through that, but then I found that their contacts in that are Hotmail and Gmail, not company related. It doesn't have the OSCAL or OSCAL.com or something like a company name behind that. Very concerning to me. All red flags. Where's this company going to be if something happens to your portable power station and you need service? I don't think they're going to be there. So I'm going to have to say there's definitely a pass on the OSCAL Powermax 6000. It does look like they're making steps forward to try to make this thing better, but man, they got a long way to go.